Last time the backup, last time when I looked at the first notice, it was the prior month's support backup. All right, ready? Okay. I'd like to call this meeting to order, a regular meeting of the Plan Commission on Monday, January 8th at 6:30 PM in the Germantown Village Hall boardroom, and also can be accessed via WebEx. This meeting has been given public notice in accordance with sections 19.83 and 19.84 of the Wisconsin statutes in such form that will apprise the general public and news media of subject matter that is intended for consideration and action. Roll call shows all Plan Commission members present except for Mr. Tarantino and Mr. Williams, both whom are excused. Next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes from the December 11th, 2023 Plan Commission meeting.
Move approval as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve December 11th, 2023 meeting minutes. Is there any discussion on the motion to approve? No discussion. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. That then takes us to new business. We'll start new business item A, American Architectural Group, agent for Peterson Global LLC, property owner of Krenz and Company, located at West 132 North 10940 Eisenhower Drive, site plan review for a 41,616 square foot building addition and parking lot expansion. That's on tonight's agenda for action. And to give us some more information and background on this new business item, we'll turn our meeting over to our Community Development Director, Jeff Retzlaff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Krenz and Company has been designing, engineering, and manufacturing transformer cooling fans and accessories for over 80 years rather. They relocated from Germantown, the industrial park back in 2009 to the business park with an original 43,000 square foot facility. I believe that's the original facility in this old aerial photograph. It was expanded to just under 70,000 square feet back in 2019. And on this 9.3 acre parcel, tonight's agenda is to consider an additional expansion, an additional 41,616 square feet, mostly warehouse and addition space, to bring the total to just under 108,000 square feet. Along with it is a proposal to add 58 parking stalls and a new parking lot area north and east of the building addition, with a new driveway to Washington Drive. The site plan is shown on the screen. The addition area is highlighted in red. The materials proposed, insulated precast concrete wall panels with split face block liner to match the existing texture and colors, stone sills, smooth horizontal reveals, pilasters, cornices, and medallions are used throughout to enhance the character and appearance. Elevations I have, the north elevation, the east, and the south elevation. And these two renderings are actually from the last expansion, but do show the renderings of the last expansion on the north and the east walls that will be added on from with the new addition. Site improvements include a new access driveway in Washington, 58 parking stalls and a new parking lot, on-site storm sewer and swales to handle runoff to the storm sewer in Washington Drive and eventually to the regional basin that's located in the business park further south off of Washington Drive. Existing water and sanitary sewer connections will be used. Landscaping includes additional groupings of landscaping on the south side of the building and some additional lighting in the parking lot. The staff concerns and comments include for Community Development Department, additional landscaping is needed along the north property line, north of the new parking lot, and around the building entrance, or the parking lot entrance on Washington Drive. The covenants for the business park call for those sorts of landscaping features to provide some buffering on the parking areas from public view. Village engineer had a January 3rd review memo with a series of comments and technical corrections that they're asking be addressed before building permits are issued. Village forester had some comments, again, concerning landscaping in and around the parking lot. With that, the staff recommendation is to approve the site development and building plans submitted by Krenzing Company for the proposed addition, subject to 10 conditions. And those begin on page 11 of the packet materials if you need to discuss those.
Make a motion to approve the project with the 10 conditions for discussion.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion on the motion to approve. Trustee Baum.
My biggest objection was the landscaping. We got 5 pods in front of the building. That is it. That's all they're proposing. I recognize that there should be something on the north side of the building, and looking at the original project, the last addition that was done, there is more landscaping, more trees to the south of the building in that front area, as opposed to just the elements along the building.
Right.
Six things along the building.
Did, a rhetorical question, if you drove past the site, like I did, I'm struck by how the trees have matured around the site, and Krenz did probably the best job, relatively speaking, in terms of meeting the street tree requirement in the business park. So much so, I'm gonna go back to the first slide. I went on Google Maps trying to find a street view where I could get a nice view of the building, and you can't.
No.
The trees at the 1/25 and the maturity of the trees, they are arguably, they may need to be trimmed some, but still, it was difficult to get a shot from the street that was a nice clear view of the architecture, which is really a nice feature of this particular building. I mean, it just makes one wonder when we talk about the street tree requirements and needing to meet those. Obviously, maybe a little more groupings would be helpful to create some gaps to see the architecture materials more, but it is.
I think that's something we had talked about over the years, is plant some trees to hide the building. We've talked to a number of applicants about that, but
Right.
in this instance, it's a nice looking building. However, we now have a gap in the trees where this addition is going. I didn't see any additional trees going out there.
Well, the street, to their credit, they planted street trees along along Eisenhower, along the south, and along Washington on their east and west property lines, entirely. Going back to, I think, the very beginning when the original building was installed. So all of the trees are consistent in their height, and their spacing. It's just the parking lot area in the northeast corner that staff has a concern about.
Sure. So that would be an issue that I'll bring up as a amendment, but I'll wait for further discussion.
Further discussion. Mr. Leshewski.
A technical question on the size of the trees and number 7 and requirement number 9. Is it 3-inch throughout the park, except in the parking lots where it's 2-inch?
No, the business park has, the covenants for the business park call for 3-inch caliper deciduous.
So number 7 would be 1 3-inch for every 10 parking spaces?
The number 7 is coming from the village forester. And I believe his condition is based on what's in the zoning code, with the minimum of the 2-inch. That's a zoning code requirement for within the parking lot, on-site landscaping, whereas the street tree requirement is the 3-inch.
3-inch, got it. But, going back to the landscape, I agree with you, Trustee Baum, that when I saw those plantings, it just looked like kind of thrown together. It's a nice looking building. I was out there yesterday. It's a beautiful park. And the only other thing I was just varied, maybe, I think those were all ginkgos or something in that landscaping where you can maybe add some variety, some hackberries or something in there too. I know the ashes are dead. I think those reading those park requirements that ash trees are one of the preferred natives. I don't think that'd be the case anymore. At least maybe there's some resistant to EAB, but for the most part, some variety in there would be nice as well. But other than that, I think it's a nice addition.
Further discussion? Trustee Baum.
So under your condition number 7, you have additional trees being required for 1 for every 10 parking stalls. And if, I'll make a motion that those trees be planted on the northeast area of the site, north of the parking lot.
Yeah, I think that that'll work. I talked to Ryan Peterson the other day, and he indicated willingness to work with staff on identifying where additional trees can go. So
So I'll amend that motion to allow them to work with staff to facilitate the final location of those trees. That's my amendment.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on a motion to amend? No discussion. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Back to the motion as amended. Further discussion? Is there representation from Krenz Group here today? First of all, I'd like to congratulate you on your success and your requirement to need more room. I think when you first built the last addition, I did a tour through that area and was very impressed, not only with the outside of the building, but the inside as well. So thank you for keeping it to the degree that you do, keeping it up, and for the architectural design that you've put into it to make it one of the more premier buildings in that area. I'd like to thank you for that. You have a lot of choices of where you can go and where you can build, where you can expand, and you choose to stay in Germantown, and I thank you for that too. So continue on with the great work you're doing, and I hope that that your success continues for you. You're welcome. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Thank you for coming. Next item under new business is item B, American Architectural Group, agent for Washington Drive LLC, property owner, and Midwest Products, Inc., located at West 129 North 11025 Washington Drive, site plan review for a new 52,038 square foot manufacturing and warehouse building on tonight's agenda for action. Once again, we'll turn the meeting over to our Community Development Director, Jeff Retzlaff, for more information and background.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. This next item is another success story for the Village of Germantown. Midwest Products started operating in 1983. They work in the commercial embroidery solutions industry and have provided services for many businesses since their inception. In 1998, they developed and patented the Hoopmaster. I'm not sure exactly that I understand what it does, but it's a commercial embroidery item that, from what I understand, somewhat revolutionized the business. They patented under a new company name, Midwest Products. They expanded into our industrial park on McCormick Drive in 2004 in what was then a 17,000 square foot building. They expanded at least once. I know we talked about other expansions over the years. But now they're looking to move on to their new facility here in our business park. And this site is located adjacent to the Krenz property, the item we just discussed, on a 4.6 acre parcel. They are proposing a 52,000 square foot manufacturing, office, and warehousing facility located on the parcel right at the corner of Washington Drive as it makes the curve. The building include just over 44,000 square feet of manufacturing, shipping, receiving area, 8,000 square feet of office, elevated loading docks, loading bays. Materials would be insulated precast panels, 20 and 24 foot height with smooth texture and reveals. on the manufacturing building component. The office area, hardy smart side panel siding, longboard siding, and utility brick. A two-tone color palette, aluminum frame, anodized windows and door systems throughout. There are some elevation drawings, and I've got a rendering here of the proposed facility that we received this afternoon. Site improvements include one new access driveway onto Washington Drive, 63 stall parking lot with curb and gutter, on-site storm sewer and swales to direct runoff to the storm sewer in Washington Drive and down to the regional basin. Landscaping includes perimeter parking lot landscaping with also street trees on Washington Drive, plantings on around the foundation on the northeast and south elevations of the proposed building. There's a materials board, the landscaping plan. You can see street trees that are shown along Washington Drive and around the perimeter of the parking area and the building foundation. I've got grading, utility, and lighting plan sheets from the plan set if we need to discuss those. Staff comments include architecture materials. Not having seen the rendering until this afternoon, my original staff report was that I didn't think that the materials and the architecture quite met the intent of the covenants, although seeing the rendering now, I think it's drastically more improved than what I had imagined based on the elevations for some reason.
I'll agree with you.
I didn't think that the reveals were going to be sufficient, but I see now that the difference in the coloring and the renderings, frankly, and we may want to have a comment about this, but are the renderings a little bit different than the elevations in terms of the presentation? Okay. Additional landscaping is needed around the parking perimeter. One of the feature items of the covenants is that the parking areas for employees should be on the side or the rear. It's difficult on a parcel like this. You know, it's a double frontage. The corner wraps around. There's no getting around parking having to be close to the road. With that said, there should be some additional screening with landscaping to compensate. And as pointed out by the village forester, the type of landscape items proposed right on the edge of the parking lot, he does not think are going to be adequate to screen the parking over time. Also, the street trees. The street tree requirement, as we discussed previously, is one deciduous street tree per 25 feet. That wasn't met by the landscaping plan, and so that needs to be revised accordingly. And there was one other item. One of the elevations showed a wall-mounted sign placeholder. The covenants don't allow wall-mounted signage for buildings in the park. It's all monument-based signage, so that'll be dealt with separately as part of another application, I'm sure. Village engineer had some review comments and technical corrections needing to be addressed prior to issuing building permits. And as I mentioned, the village forester had some comments about additional parking lot screening being required and additional street trees. With that said, the staff recommendation is to approve the site development and building plan submitted by Midwest Products for the 52,000 square foot facility, subject to 12 conditions. And we do have representation here for Midwest Products. Did you want to explain a little bit more about the rendering? Could you come forward and
Push
just
the button at the
explain the
Bottom of on the base.
the
So
light?
the light goes out. There you go. Yep. There you go.
Hold it up all the way up.
There you go.
Good
Thank you.
evening. So actually the renderings and the 2D elevations that you see, it is identical. I'll just quickly address that just so you can kind of know. When going through the staff comments, there was a question about the two-tone. So in the 2D renderings, there was the light gray that went around the warehouse building, but then there was a dark gray band that went around the top. Recognizing that maybe was an issue or something, we went back and we looked at it late last week and produced the rendering, thinking that maybe this would be something a little bit more, I think, aesthetically pleasing. It fits a little bit more into the office. I think it keeps the rhythm of that dark. So the dark parts, if I step away from the microphone, is that going to be a problem?
You gotta have the handheld.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
So the dark features.
Have that microphone, you can
Oh,
walk
okay.
over.
Turned on. Hold it really close. Spit into it, yeah.
Mhm.
So the dark features on the building, at least in the office portion, kind of highlight just significant kind of functions that happen within that office space. So these three, the dark grays, you have a break room, conference room, and then a corner office. Kind of highlight that on the elevation. So we thought that going back and looking at those features better represent what was happening in the warehouse space, and then highlighting those windows, those large windows that will be going into that larger warehouse space. And marking the entrance with a completely different material, just signifying the entrance was another significant kind of feature that we added. So we have
What's this?
awnings or canopies that kind of cover windows, and then we treated them differently at those special spaces where we have larger awning spaces versus just more of a window shade or a window covering over the light gray areas. Paint, so they're all pre-finished materials. The warehouse space will be painted pre-cast. It's a smooth, but then these are all these finishes, so it's a Hardie, it's a cementitious product, like it's not vinyl, but it's a manufactured product. So we got Hardie plank boards. This is actually a wood grain metal panel, and then the other side of material between the dark grays. And then to address that, I know on the rendering, so this was the side picture that Mr. Elsoff was talking about. We'll work with you on that and make it more of a ground mounted monument sign, recognizing that didn't mean it's kind of a design feature at one time. So we'll go back and design that to accommodate what's required.
Trustee Baum?
Okay, let's talk about that sign panel. It's an architectural feature on the building. What do you think you're gonna do with it? Get rid of it? And so then I don't have that feature on the building anymore?
Yep, that'll be taken down. We'll remove it completely and then do a ground mounted sign. We'll probably do it of the same, maybe like a precast panel that's.
Okay, so your signage will be a ground mounted sign, but I've lost a feature on the building. And that's what I'm responding to, is that feature being removed. Is there some other way to incorporate that element on the building? Maybe if you took that wall panel, brought it 90 degrees and put it next to the entrance, so it's an additional feature at the entrance. And it could be the dark gray color next to the wood grain to try and enhance the entrance a little bit more. So that I still have that element. It's no longer a sign, but it helps call out the entrance.
Yep, I see what you're saying. And even, keeping that height, I guess, whether we keep that height or not, yeah, left side or right side. The only thing I guess I'd maybe be,
I don't know, I hate doing this while you're standing here. Maybe some of you want to go back and look at because that, in this rendering, I like the building much more than the elevations that you gave us. And once I heard that we can't have signage on the buildings, like, well, what am I gonna do with this wall now? But I like the wall, I like that feature, and now if you take it off, it seems to miss something. So how do we keep that feature without the signage and still make it something? So I'd encourage you to go look at that and work with staff to figure out how to keep that, how to keep something. I'll make a motion to approve as presented as a starting point.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion on the motion to approve. The- Get your mic on, Bill?
The discussion we had about the view we see right on the screen right now as opposed to the renderings we had before, or that we saw in the other drawings. Does item 11 need to remain in here? Condition 11?
Well, I put building, condition number 11 then in there in anticipation of the plan commission doing something with it. Maybe you want to take a look at number 11,
No, no.
David, as far as,
We did seem to come to agreement for the most part. Maybe the part that we asked to go back and review on that panel that has the sign on it now, maybe that's enough to leave this in here.
I don't have condition 11 in front of me. Can you read it to me?
yeah, it reads, the building architecture has insufficient articulation and or other architectural and material features necessary to meet the architectural requirements in the Germantown Business Park covenants. Additional reveals, articulation, materials, and or textures should be included in the design. Revised elevation plans shall be prepared and submitted for review and approval by the Plan Commission prior to issuance of a building permit, serving as the architectural review board for the Village of Germantown Business Park.
I think if you take that out of there, you kind of nullify the argument to keep that feature or move it around, to play with it.
Maybe enough to keep it? Is that what
Yeah.
you're thinking? I don't mind. I just didn't want there to be a question later that we didn't agree on the
I-
design we see here.
My perspective is, now that you've shown me this rendering, I see more intently the articulation in plan and elevation that I did not see in the front on elevations.
Right.
So an amendment to the approval is to not approve the elevations that are submitted, but to approve the rendering that has been
We'd
submitted.
leave that and then make it, okay. I'll go along with that.
Further discussion? Mr. Lashewski?
Can, I don't know if it's Director Retzloff or the applicant point out at number 8, where specifically we're looking at more of the plantings, the street trees. Is that along the bend? There was a landscaping plan and it had like a bunch of arborvitaes or something along there. There.
Yeah, as you can see, there are, I think it's 12 trees that are shown in a position that would be qualify as street trees. I think a handful of those are evergreens. And that don't meet the type of tree for a street tree, so that would need to change. And the quantity is drastically less than 1 per 25 feet.
So we're just adding more circles around the bend.
Yeah, the larger circles around the bend closer to the property line are representing the street trees. The smaller ones close to the obviously the parking stalls are the short shrubbery that the village forester doesn't believe in terms of the type of material is going to grow enough or fast enough to provide the level of screening around the parking.
And are those between the trees on the bend, are those arborvitaes, those low growing, they kind of grow together like a big blob?
I don't believe arborvitae are in the plan at all.
Where's Josh at?
Yeah, I know.
Excuse
I thought they were,
his fourth child. Excuses.
it's the, what are the PJ? Is it Fitzer, juniper? I looked that up. It looked like a low growing, creeping.
Yes.
I just see that sometimes they
I don't know that
overgrow.
they kind of move
Machewski
like
is not
that.
our forester.
They kind of overgrow and they become unruly.
They do, and they die back after a number of years.
And yeah,
Yeah, the forester, that's the one that he points out in his comments that he doesn't think are gonna grow to provide any kind of a screening.
okay. So,
He's
I guess-
asking that they be replaced with
Okay.
a different
oh,
variety.
that's already in the plan that those be replaced,
Well, that's the recommendation, yeah.
the recommendation. Okay, thank you.
As condition number,
I
is that a condition?
think it was it number 8?
I'm looking here. Number 9, revised landscape plan, including a revised plant list and installation sizes meeting the minimum requirements, addressing the comments and recommendations of the village forester shall be prepared and submitted for review and approval by village staff prior to issuance of a building permit.
Further discussion, trustee Baum.
Alright, so we have a requirement for street trees every 25 feet. When I go back to the previous project and I look at the street trees along there, it is monotonous how regimented those trees are along that street. We have a requirement for a tree every 25 feet, but we need to adhere to that, but I would like the trees to be a little more diverse along that street, not 10 feet off the street every 25 feet. An articulation and in and out, something that's a little more diverse. As you said in that presentation, you couldn't see the building anymore because the street trees were so, maybe if we cluster some of them somewhere and a little bit more spacing, we could see the building. It's a nice looking building. I'd like to see something different with the street trees. The comment that's made about this hedgerow along the edge of the parking lot, 95 of the same bush is not an acceptable landscaping plan for me. I would like to see different vegetation, heights, depths, widths, a little bit more articulation in the landscaping along that, along the curve and along Washington Drive. I am not in need of every car being blocked from the street. Maybe there's clusters, put some more clustering in, but the regimentation of vegetation is too monotonous for me. So I will, do we have a motion to approve? Did I
We
it
do.
already? Okay, I'll make an amendment that the, what's the condition for the vegetation? Number 8? Number 9, that it gets brought back to staff for further discussion to make it less regimented, but applies with the village conditions.
Yeah.
Second,
Motion made to amend and seconded. Discussion on the motion to amend. You're leaving it to staff's discretion to type and clumping variation?
Clustering. not
Cluster, I'm
clumping.
sorry, cluster was,
Clustering, yes. Yeah, it's just too monotonous for me.
Yeah, you can see that now, like I was talking about, the Krenz property, they're all planted in a soldier's row, 25-foot spacing, and they've grown together.
Yeah, it looks terrible.
don't say that.
Well, it looks wonderful, but I wouldn't like more.
It's too good.
There you
It's too
go.
good. So I think there needs to be some diversity in there, a little bit of variety, a little bit of in and out, a little bit of something else.
Okay, further discussion on the motion to amend. No further discussion.
Yes.
I'll-
Number 11 required that the revised elevations come back to the plan commission. Did you want to do something with that? Want it to Come back?
I would, well, we got a motion on the floor. I'd like to deal with that motion first.
Motion to amend
Yeah,
first.
yeah, then we'll come back to 11 to talk about the architecture.
Further discussion on a motion to amend. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Back to the motion as amended. Further discussion. Trustee Baum.
All right, for the architecture, I do not want to approve the elevations that were presented. I would like to approve the rendering that was presented. So I'll make a motion to make that change to start with. Yes,
I thought I heard Adam explain that the elevations, the materials, the architecture is the same as in the renderings. It's just the color scheme.
Same as the treatment of the precast paint on the warehouse. So, sorry, if you can, if you want to go back to the.
Oh, sorry.
The rendering.
Okay. Just go to one, yeah.
but
Okay, so.
start there.
Yeah, so as you can see, we have a gray, the dark gray is around the entire top portion of the warehouse building. Everything else is the same. It's brick, got the the hardy panels, got the dark gray with the light gray in between. The office portion is exactly the same, 3D from 3D. Windows are the same on the warehouse, all the doors and windows are the same. So if you could maybe go to the, so the difference then you see as the top of the warehouse does not have the dark gray all the way around it.
Right.
The dark gray is just highlighted at the window locations.
So wait.
That's the only difference between the rendering and the 2D elevations.
So
Correct.
it's the color scheme that you like better on the rendering than on the elevation.
Correct. And my motion was about rejecting the two-dimensional elevations in favor of the 3D rendering as presented. So that's the start of my motion, is to accept this and reject the elevations.
Did we get a second?
Not yet.
Motion made to amend and seconded. Oh, go ahead.
How'd that satisfy the other views we saw?
I have,
I guess what I'm hearing is you like this color scheme
I do.
and the elevation. If you converted this to a 2D elevation, it would be this with a different color scheme.
That's correct.
different color scheme. So I'm rejecting the color scheme of these elevations,
Okay.
but in the rendering, I don't have all four elevations. So what are the other two back elevations that we're gonna get? What is the west and the south elevation?
So you want to know what those two drawings would look like if you use the same color we saw in the,
I think the
So
two-dimensional elevation should be resubmitted with the new color scheme based on the rendering,
agreed.
west and the south.
the west and the south. These are gonna change
Well, okay.
potentially.
This is the west and the south. The west has a expansion wall,
And we haven't talked about that yet.
right?
But the south has the dark gray top to it. What are you gonna do to this when you change the color scheme? At the windows, I see 5 windows there. Are those gonna go to the dark gray and I get the dark gray removed from the top? I assume, but I don't assume. I want to know. I want to see.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to have it all be light gray. Because it's a different treatment or it's a different type of window. It's not the same large glass into the warehouse that it is on the north and east. It's something I can look at.
So your initial intent was to make that whole south elevation the light gray with no additional interest to it. I would have a problem with that. So I would encourage you to bring forward a new south elevation. The west elevation, understanding that the majority of that wall is a demountable wall for future expansion, I can accept that wall being left a little plain. But on the right end of it, you got that dark gray cap to it, which you will change to some new form. So I would like to see new elevations that match the renderings. And in that, you address that sign panel as to what we're going to do with that, because I think that feature needs to be still carried forward somehow, some way, because I liked it. So my motion would be,
Did you already make it?
I started to, but I got to enhance it. My motion would be to bring back new elevations and renderings with a correct color scheme that addresses the color scheme and that sign panel revision. That's my motion.
And that's second, I agree. That's second.
Okay, further discussion on the motion to amend.
Is that a replacement of number 11? Or,
I don't have all the paperwork with me. What was number 11? They're giving it to me.
I mean, it, in effect is what I
Insufficient
was,
articulation, yes.
okay.
Mhm. That responds to number 11. That's what I want brought forward to respond to number 11.
Okay.
Further discussion on a motion to amend. No further discussion. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Not opposed, motion carries. Back to the motion as amended. Further discussion. No further discussion. All those in favor, well, before we vote, again, appreciation and congratulations on your business growing and coming into the business park. I do appreciate that. Again, there's a lot of choices you have out there. There's a lot of people trying to get your business. I really appreciate that you want to stay in Germantown and build in this business park, and the building that you presented, as we saw in the 3D renderings, it looks marvelous. So thank you for that as well. And I hope that your continued success goes on into the future so that we can talk about the expansion and the removal of that expansion wall. So thank you for that. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Not opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for coming.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I meant to do this at the beginning of the meeting, but can we divert from the agenda and move to item D?
To bring up item D as the next item
Yes,
under new business, that is your motion.
yes.
Do I have a second? Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None opposed? Motion carries. That then brings us to new business item D, Fast Signs of Menominee Falls, agent for Frank and Mary Ann Waldron, property owners of Country Air Kennels located at West 140, North 11445 Country Air Drive, a sign review application on tonight's agenda for action. Give us more information, background on this item. We'll turn our meeting over again to Director Retzloff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'd like to make a motion to approve as presented.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to approve? Can I see it? There we go.
It's up there.
I want to see it and call it. Very nice.
Can I also make a further motion that we put signs at the beginning of the agenda? Future
You can make
discussion.
any motion you want.
We already
Future
have, we have
discussion.
one motion, right? You can make it as a suggestion.
That is my suggestion.
Thank you. Further discussion on a motion to approve. Mr. Lashesky.
Where exactly is this sign going? Is it going over the remnants of the old sign?
No, it's going to be located, the existing sign is on the north side of the driveway on Country Air Drive, as shown, circled in the aerial photo there. The new sign will be located slightly to the west to put it on the west side of the property line, the right-of-way line, a minimum of 5 feet as required by code. Right now, the existing sign is in the right-of-way.
Ooh. Okay, thank you.
Further discussion? No further discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None opposed? Motion carries. Next item is item C under new business, Excel Engineering, Inc., agent for Bethlehem Lutheran Church, property owner located at North 100, West 14290, Bel Air Lane, a site plan review for a 23,471 square foot building addition and parking lot expansion on tonight's agenda for action. Once again, we'll go to Director Retzloff for background and information.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This item we discussed back in June of last year as a consultation when at issue was a building setback from Bel Air Lane because of the strange wording of the institutional district and the setback requirements. Essentially require the setback in institutional to be equal to that of the adjoining zoning districts. And with all residential zoning districts, the minimum setback was 35. They originally were asking for some relief from that. As a result of that discussion and further investigation and planning, they have met the 35-foot setback. So that's a non-issue at this point. So moving forward, they have submitted site plans for a proposed 23,471 square foot building addition and parking lot expansion to the site. A couple aerial photographs, this from the south looking north at the site, Bel Air in the foreground, Fond du Lac Avenue in the back. And this view is from the northeast looking southwest across the site, so you can see the residential neighborhoods that abut the property to the south, left, and to the west, to the right on this particular photograph. The parcel is 8.5 acres in size, currently a 31,270 square foot elementary school and daycare building. The proposal is to expand the building and include all of the components in a fairly typical worship environment, worship space, a narthex, a vestibule, offices, gathering spaces, just a wonderful plan that we saw back in June. And I've got some further renderings I'll be going through shortly. Materials and architecture, the quarry face stone, composite panels, some EIFS, standing seam metal roof, clear story windows, and a steeple up to 40 feet in height. This is the site plan, shows the building addition on the what I'll call the east side of southeast side of the existing building near the corner, just adjacent to the existing stormwater basin. And as you can see on the far left, on the west side, proposed additional parking stalls, including I'll call it a parking lot in the northwest corner of the site that results in an additional or a net increase of about 44 parking stalls, a total of 167 for the site overall. I mentioned the building setback is a non-issue. Building improvements, a 538 person capacity worship space, 144 seat fellowship area, 1,400 square foot outdoor patio with 42 seat area, vestibule, narthex, pastor offices, study kitchen, workrooms, multi-purpose rooms. All of those are shown on the floor plan here. But I'll start here with the elevations. At the top, the east elevation facing out over the stormwater basin, looking out toward the intersection Bel Air and Fond du Lac Avenue. The elevations, this shows both the east and the south elevations of the proposed addition, adding on obviously to the existing 31,000 square foot building. The floor plan and the renderings. I think we saw most of these back in June. It's worth a quick tour through those as well. Exciting spaces for the church. The project includes additional site improvements, as I mentioned, a new access, not a new access driveway, but a relocated driveway onto Bel Air Lane, serving additional parking on the west side of the site. Again, a total of 44 additional stalls in 2 new parking areas along the west property line. One of those is pointed out in the staff comments. The corner of it, for some reason, is slightly within the minimum 20-foot setback. That needs to be slightly adjusted. That should not be an issue. On-site stormwater, sewer and swales take the runoff mainly around the north side of the building, around the north side along Fond du Lac Avenue and down into an expanded stormwater basin. All of that grading and expansion of the stormwater basin necessitates removing a lot of trees. As you can see in the demolition plan, here along the Fond du Lac Avenue side of the building addition and existing building. Also, there's some tree removal going on the west side, the property line adjacent to the residential neighborhood. A lot of trees being removed in there as well. And for that reason, staff is recommending additional landscaping in both of those particular areas. Yeah, additional landscaping that is proposed. Minimal landscaping is shown to replace what's being removed along Fond du Lac Avenue and along the west property line. Some additional parking lot lighting being introduced in that new parking area on the northwest side of the site. I've got grading plan if we need to discuss that, the utility plan and the lighting plan. Again, the additional lighting is limited to the new parking lot on the northwest corner of the site. Staff comments, I mentioned the parking lot on the northwest corner needing to meet the minimum 20-foot setback. That would need to be a change made to the site plan. Additional landscaping is needed according to staff along the west property line abutting the new parking lot to replace or supplement what's remaining and what's proposed to screen that parking lot from the residential area. I was talking earlier with Tom Schermerhorn representing the church. He's with Excel Engineering about some alternatives to how to deal with the treatment of that parking lot in terms of the landscaping. So they're amenable to making some changes there to enhance the screening and buffering from the parking lot to the residential area to the west. Also along Fond du Lac Avenue, street trees need to be reinstalled at the zoning code requirement of 1 per every 50 feet. And also called for to replace the significant lost and mature landscaping that's already existing along the Fond du Lac Avenue side of the property. And finally, there's a small wood post and panel sign that's proposed to be removed. That can't be reinstalled without being code compliant, just a minor item. Village engineer, January 2nd review memo with some technical concerns and corrections that need to be addressed prior to issuance of building permits. And the village forester had similar comments with regard to street trees and landscaping across the site. Concern about the tree removal. There was no tree removal plan to clearly spell out exactly what's all being removed. So it was hard to tell along that west property line exactly what's going to remain. And regardless of that, a call for additional landscaping along the west property line from the village forester. With that, the staff recommendation is to approve the site development and building plans for the 23,000 square foot building addition and parking lot expansion for the existing Bethlehem Lutheran Church and School facility, subject to 11 conditions. Tom Schermerhorn is here to respond to any questions that you might have. And those conditions begin on page 181 of the packet we need to discuss.
I'll make a motion to approve as presented with the 11 conditions for the site development.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion on a motion to approve. Trustee Ball.
I greatly appreciate you guys manipulating this building to stay outside the setback. It was one of my big problems with the first rendition. On this one, I do have a problem with the trees being removed and not fully understanding where the trees are going back in along Fond du Lac Avenue. So if we can get a landscaping plan that clearly shows, I look at this image here, there's a forest behind this and we've stripped away all the trees. So it's a little different than what I understand you're looking to build. I have No problems with the building itself. My biggest issue is the site plan and the landscaping. There should be a way that we can remove trees and replant them. If we spade them and replant them after we do grading, I would talk to our resident landscape architect if he were here tonight, but
He's excused.
you keep saying excuse.
He is excused.
Okay. So that is my biggest concern, and that is addressed in the 11 comments. Is that correct, Mr. Retzloff?
Yes.
Okay, so I will leave that to, that's coming back to you at staff level approval to deal with that, or does it need?
At this point, unless the plan commission wants to see the plans come back to the plan commission.
We'll wait to see what others have to say before I make a motion on that, but that's all I have for right now.
Further discussion? Mr. Lashesky?
Have the neighbors to the west opined on the removal of the trees and the replacement with the landscaping at all?
No, we have not received any comments, nor have we solicited comments from the neighborhood.
Because to me, that's somewhat important. I mean, it's surrounded by residential to the south and to the west. And I just took a look yesterday. Now, to the west it does look like the property line, there's, I don't know, a 10 or 12 foot, there it is, the top right kind of seam of trees. And I don't know what's in there. It could all be buckthorn for all I know, and it might be an improvement. But it does look like the property line kind of goes down the middle. So I don't know, it'd be interesting to what extent the neighbors are aware that those trees are coming down. And you know, their entire view to the east may be changed. They don't even know about it.
Right. With that in mind, the staff recommendation is to ensure that there be a screen installed or replaced or kept if possible. As I mentioned, Tom with Excel Engineering indicated earlier to me before the meeting that there is a willingness to work with staff in the village in coming up with a mutually acceptable landscaping plan that tries to retain as much of the existing vegetation as possible. I've been by there too. There's a nice row of very mature evergreens in the front.
Yeah.
And then behind it, some deciduous. I don't know what it is. It could be buckthorn, but it looks like it's been fairly well maintained on both sides of the property line. Frankly, whether or not there's trees removed, trees replaced, a privacy fence is always an option. Part of the problem apparently is that the topography changes, and in order for the parking lot to match, there needed to be some grading done along the property line, thus the tree removal. So I don't know, Tom, do you have any other comments or suggestions at this point that you might want to throw out there?
Sir, if you could come to the microphone, that would be appreciated.
Can we be clear on where these trees?
Bring your microphone on, Bill, please.
Yeah, on the, I'm going to pull up the demolition plan.
You could, that view you had before you started moving them would show it, wouldn't it?
Right here on the west, along the west property line. It's a hatched area on the plan, but basically in the notes, it says all of the vegetation is being removed.
Okay.
And when you look at, you know, there's a parking lot that's proposed in that vicinity. But clearly, when you go and you look back, and I got to scroll all the way back to the beginning,
Still
it's a
okay.
fairly well-established tree line along that entire west property line.
Okay, it's clear now.
It's a little more visible, almost straight on from this vantage point.
Looks like a shared, there could be some from both sides.
Yep.
And that's a drainage area now,
No, it's not.
but it's going to be.
No, well, no, it's not going to be a drainage area, but in order to, Tom, you explain. You're the engineer.
Which button am I pushing there? That one? Or it's-
You're good.
Yep, now you got it off. When the light is off,
There we
it's
go.
on.
Got it.
There you go.
Sorry about that. Thank you. So just some of the conversation I had with Jeff before the meeting after we received the response to this last week was we'll look at the grading that's taking place in that area, because that is the problem, is we need to cut down the grade in order to expand the parking lot in there. So one of the options that we could possibly look at is, even if we deal with the grading and create a little bit of a retaining wall along the edge of the parking lot would allow us not to have to grade that area, and then all of that could stay. So that's one of the options that we certainly could pursue. Part of what we have to look at too is exactly what is the vegetation that's there and whose property is it on? So those are kind of all the things we have to sort through to figure out what's the best solution to make this work for everybody. So those are the options we'll explore with the staff so that we know what's on the church's property, what's on the neighbor's property, and what we can do to affect the grading. To try to retain as much of that as we can.
Okay. Further discussion?
Jeff, what condition is that? Is it a condition?
There are a number of them. Number 9 calls for a revised landscaping plan.
Yeah.
Addressing all village staff comments and recommendations presented in the staff report and recommendation. You would include the village forester and planning staff comments on the landscaping.
I think the concern that your drawings illustrate taking down what appears to be a highly dense buffer and replacing it with 4 trees. I think that's the biggest concern for me. So if we can get a revised landscaping plan and a revised parking lot plan, if a retaining wall is the solution, great. But I would not want to eliminate that dense landscaping for 4 trees. So,
Condition number 7 also addresses the west property line. That one reads, additional deciduous and evergreen trees and shrubs shall be installed along the west property line around the new parking lot perimeter in an amount and type necessary to provide screening from the residential lots to the west. As an alternative, install a minimum 6-foot-high wood privacy fence along the property line for a 15-foot distance north and south beyond the ends of the new parking lot.
Not a fence
My-
lover.
what?
I said I'm not a fence lover.
No, I'm not a fence lover, and to what I see with construction is we're gonna get baby plants. And that's not gonna do anything to match the dense plantings that are there today. So
So, but a fence is an instantaneous screen.
I think there's still some sorting that needs to be done on along that property line, to whose tree is whose.
so that, the landscaping and this parking lot solution, I'd like to see brought back to the plan commission
Okay.
for us to review.
This is this is a motion?
I will make an emotion to amend number 7 to require the landscaping and parking lot design to come back before plan commission for review.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Actually, a motion made to amend and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to amend? No discussion. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Not opposed? Motion carries. Back to the motion as amended. Further discussion?
Anything else that you wanted us to talk about, Jeff? I mean, aside from the trees on Fond du Lac Avenue, which is already addressed in here, the specifics of that parking lot and the dense plantings, those are my 2 biggest problems.
Concerns?
Yes.
Moving the driveway a little bit, that didn't bother me.
No.
Fact that they've brought this back to the setback where it should be, I appreciate that. The building is beautiful. We got some.
You want to straighten that comment out? They didn't move the setback.
No, the building is moved back from its originally proposed location.
Okay.
Originally, it was
What did I say? Move the building back to the setback.
yeah, the setback was set at 35 feet based on the interpretation of the code, with that kind of squirrely language. Their original proposal was at about 12 and a half feet for the nearest
Okay.
corner of the building. So yeah, they worked to move some things around and reconfigure internally, I believe.
Okay.
Rest of the building is beautiful. Got a couple of issues with the landscaping.
Further discussion on the motion? We're still on the motion to amend. No, we're not. We're down to the motion as amended. Further discussion. Mr. Lashesky.
Just on the, correct me if I'm wrong, Director Retzlaff, on the northerly portion of this site, is there a drainage easement that kind of runs east-west? there's definitely a low spot and it looks like water runs across that property. And I'm guessing that it's not being disturbed.
Currently,
Mm-hmm. You see it from Fond du Lac Avenue. When you get, like I said, like maybe the last,
Tom, can you, or read,
kind of towards the apex it'd be on the right, well, that's the photo.
There.
Yeah, there you see it.
cutting
I
the,
assume that is a drainage easement, or at least a
It's
drainage?
not a actual easement in place there.
Uh-huh.
But there is, some water that basically does flow from the, west side of the property there, kind of from that residential area. And then it basically kind of just cheats and flows across the site. And then it gets to a point where it's not explicitly clear whether some of it, most of it is ending up in the ditch, it appears.
Mm-hmm.
Basically just kind of going right
Then
through our
it's like-
site. And then right now, in a large flood event, some of that could end up basically, getting down,
But is that area being disturbed at all? Okay.
proposing, but with addressing some of the stormwater comments, I think we are going to have to, delineate that a little bit better and make that very clear on, that water is, where that water is going.
Good.
Further discussion to the motion as amended? No further discussion? The only thing I would add is it's very exciting to talk about an expansion of a church, especially one to this degree, and a very aggressive move for the congregation, and they should be congratulated for taking this huge step forward. It's a beautiful building. It is a great testament to how well their church is not only working for them, but for their members as well. And I think it'll continue to grow in this area for many years to come. So thank you for adding this addition to the corner and making it as great as you did. It's a great testament to your congregation and to the Lord himself. So thank you. Further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed? Motion carries. That takes care of all items listed on tonight's agenda under new business. Thank you for coming tonight. I appreciate that very much. That then brings us to citizen input and public appearance on items on our agenda that are not subject to a public hearing, which are none. If there is anyone in our audience or joining us via WebEx that would like to come forward for citizen input or public appearance, you're welcome to do so at this time. All I would ask is you come to the podium and state your name and address for the record, or if you're joining us via WebEx, make the moderator know that you wish to speak as well. So is there anyone wishing to come forward for citizen input or public appearance? Thank you. It always shocks her, that's why.
It does, especially in the winter. Happy New Year, first of all. Melanie Smythe, N140W17938 Cedar Lane. Just an observation, having gone to a number of different meetings, and not all of you get to do that, in Public Works over the last few months, there's been a lot of discussion by residents about the trees and planning and how they're maintained. And from the various presentations by Scott during the budget process, they talked about tree programs and the types of trees and the way they should be planned and maintained. And it seems like there's inconsistency in coming from this group in terms of what some of the things are being spoken about. So perhaps there should be a re-review of what the tree program is, and maybe just it shared. What really is it? Because you know, and undulating trees do not form this canopy forest, which is what they were talking about, trying to create on some of the avenues. And this may or may not be appropriate in some of the streets. So it's just an observation that I've had in sitting through some of the other discussions and listening to residents about what they prefer and what they do and don't want in terms of planting in their neighborhoods. And obviously, a neighborhood is different than this because it's Fond du Lac, and it's different than in the business park. But maybe it's time to revisit trees in the village this year and just the application of things. That's all.
Okay, thank you for
Thanks.
your recommendation. Thank you for coming forward. Sure, if you would like.
One, based on the comments that I made tonight,
Yeah.
the Friends property with the soldier of trees right along the street, for me, is too monotonous. If you took out every other one and pushed it back and made some articulation in there and did some clustering of them, I think that would make for a more pleasing street. The ones that are on the street can form that canopy, but you meet the requirement of 1 per 25 feet. So that's
I don't-
why I said to articulate.
Yeah, I'm not disputing any of what was said. It's just seems like there isn't a clear direction. And different groups of people within the village are doing this, and then you got people over here doing this, and then you got residents who don't want that and do want this, and rejecting trees that the taxpayers are giving them. There's just unclear tree policy in Germantown. And there are people who want to form a citizens tree group to sit down and work out some kind of, at least in the subdivisions anyway, methodology for thinking about trees, if trees need to be replaced, if they need to be put in, those kinds of things. And obviously that's a whole big deal, or it could be. And it's just an observation, as I said.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to come forward for citizen input public appearance at this time? There is no one else. Then we can go to announcements. Does anyone have any announcements they'd like to make?
Yes.
Planner Retzlaff.
We are planning a special meeting on January 22nd, a joint meeting with the Economic Development Commission to review and receive a presentation of the residential market analysis by Tracy Cross and Associates.
Okay, great.
So you are welcome to attend. You'll be getting an official invitation shortly.
All right, thank you for that.
We're not expected to attend.
I'm sorry, you are expected to attend.
Required to attend. You
Question
won't
is,
be excused.
is that 6:30 on that evening? Do you know?
Yes.
Any other announcements? The only announcement I would like to make is, I don't know if anybody noticed, but if you got the free paper of the Express News over the weekend, one of the matriarchs of Germantown had passed away, Irene Blau. A very prominent person, helped to write a lot of the history of Germantown. I think 3 or 4 books in regards to where we started, who was here, how they built the area, and I think she took it through to the 70s. I think at least through the Vietnam War. So it started with our beginnings and expanded on. A great historian, very much involved in the community. For me to start listing what she was involved in would not do her justice, because I would forget something, and I don't want to do that. But if you get a chance and still have your free paper, please read about Irene and the things that she contributed to this community. And it also lists the visitation and funeral times as well, for those that want to pay their respects. But she will be missed. She was a great lady, and was always open to conversation in many of the events that I spoke to her about. So I will miss her as well, and appreciate everything she's done for this community.
Is her house on the Village Historic Registry? It is? Okay.
Through the woods. Any other announcements? If not, we can be adjourned. Thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you all for watching, and have a good night.